I don't want no oil, a spoil in my shoreline. I like fish much better than crud. I like birds and things, a-creeping and crawling. Won't trade no more oil for blood. The sun done give us all we need to make this country run. But that black demon oil's got us fussing and fighting, and I do believe it's time we was done. I don't want them nukes run by them kooks who think radioactivity is fun. No more three-headed frogs or kids with leukemia. Nuclear power ain't fit for a dog. The sun done give us all we need to make this country run. But that nuclear power's got us fussing and fighting, and I do believe it's time we was done. No nukes!
Good morning, Toledo, and good morning, Bowling Green, and good afternoon, Columbus, and hello to all of you on the internet, wherever and whenever you may be. My name is Joe DeMare, and I am here with my wonderful co-host,
Rebecca Wood.
Yes, and together, Rebecca and I are going to craft an unforgettable hour of radio called For a Green Future. For a Green Future is a show where we talk about ecology and the environment. And we talk about them in the ways that they affect you, your wealth, your health, your happiness, the wealth and health and happiness of your friends and your family, and the birds and the bees and the worms and the trees and pretty much everybody and everything, because, like it or not, we are all wrapped up together on this wonderful planet called Earth. And so, in our show, for the next 10 minutes or so, we're going to be talking about various things, various eco-observations I had during the week. Then we're going to have a guest, a call-in guest, and this was our call-in guest from last week, Jesse James Deer in the Water, is going to be talking to us about some of the developments in the nuclear issues up there in Michigan. And after we talk to Jesse, we'll hear from our advertisers and patrons. And then Rebecca, we'll be going to you. And what will we be talking about this week?
We will be talking about St. Patrick and the snake.
St. Patty. Right. Seems appropriate since this is St. Patrick's Day.
Although, a lot of memes have been going around pointing out that it's also, I think, St. Bridget's Day who liked cats.
Oh, I liked St. Bridget. She was one of my favorites growing up. So.
Maybe next year we'll do cats in honor of St. Bridget.
All right. And after that, we will then be hearing some ecological news, of which there is a lot. There's a lot of cool ecological news that we'll be talking about. Some good, some bad, and all of it interesting. So, one thing I wanted to talk about today was yesterday I was listening to WBGU in Bowling Green. The public TV station has an audio-only channel, and I just happened to tune to it, and I was listening, and there was an article in there that someone was reading by this fella who likes to kill wolves. And, it was this big, long thing about, how to kill them, where to kill them, what the best place to go to kill wolves is. He's a member of the Safari Club. And it struck me for a couple reasons. One, he kept repeating, I neither hate nor love wolves. I just like to shoot them, And I don't know, it seems like shooting something is kind of an expression of, like hatred.
Well, it's like some people neither hate nor love humans and enjoy shooting them. So,
Yeah, I don't know. But there's a lot of logical inconsistencies in his arguments for killing wolves. And mostly this letter was trying to persuade other people to start shooting them. He says, like a lot of hunters, he says he wants to see wolves in all 50 states. But if you keep shooting them,
Yeah, those two goals are not compatible.
they won't be, right?
Yeah.
And another point that he kept making over and over again is that apex predators must be managed. And ecologically speaking, that's completely false. Apex predators, one thing they're very good at is managing their own numbers. I mean, you
Right.
never see such an overpopulation of wolves that they eat everything. That just doesn't happen. They have strict social hierarchies, they have huge territories, and they'll literally sooner eat each other, like eat wolves that are trying to encroach on their territory, than they would overpopulate in their own territory. So his whole argument is basically wrong. And so that really struck me. And since I tried to find the article that they were reading so I could like respond to it directly, but I couldn't. It was just the subject for that hour was outdoor. And so they had articles from all different kinds of outdoor magazines. And I didn't catch the beginning of it, so I don't know where this Let's Kill Wolves scree was printed. But since I have a mic, I decided to respond to it. And then I also want to respond to something else that happened this past week.
Basically, humans that just, you keep on breeding and don't have any human management plan, isn't it?
That's a point. That is a point. We're not advocating, we're not advocating human control. No, don't.
The ultimate prey.
No. We're not going there. But
I'm really not going there.
But there is.
I'm old and I hobble.
Yeah.
I would not do well.
No, yeah, probably we would not do well in that situation.
I just kind of stand there and be like, oh, he just shoot me.
But it is kind of a projection, isn't it? I mean, he's projecting these qualities on wolves, that they're apex predators that'll eat everything if you if you don't control them, and that is kind of like a description of us. So, but another thing that happened this past week that I wanted to mention were the tornadoes here in Ohio. March 15th, just a couple days ago, a whole bunch of tornadoes hit. 3 people died in Logan County in Lakeview. And, this is on top of, we had a bunch of tornadoes just a few weeks ago. And in fact, our tornado count for this year is already 18 in Ohio, more than Tornado Alley has had. And the average number of tornadoes per year in the state is 19. So we're already at the year-long average, and here it is just March. And the reason, of course, is the super hot weather that we had just before the tornadoes, because it was the cold front coming through that ended the 70-plus degree days that had so much energy in it that it spawned all these tornadoes. And I saw a tweet by Jim Jordan, the representative in the Congress for some of the districts that got hurt, that had tornadoes, and he was like, bless the people who are working on the rescue efforts. And yes, definitely bless those people that are helping the victims of the tornadoes. But he's doing that at the same time he continues to deny global warming. So,
is that like, oh, the Southern, oh, bless your heart?
Maybe, yeah. It's hard to tell.
Keep doing your silly little rescue efforts, sweetie.
Right.
We're just going to make bigger and better ones.
It's hard to tell on X. You can't catch the tone, but
yeah.
But of course, global warming is real. And another story that from this past week is that we just finished a year of record sea surface temperatures. And literally every single day for the entire year was a record temperature in the sea surface. And not just a record, but this record was like an order of magnitude higher than 2023. And 2023 was an order of magnitude higher than all the previous years. And so the globe is really heating up, and we don't shy away from that here on For a Green Future. But the mainstream media response is not heating up. The mainstream media response to a year of continuous record temperatures was really quite tepid, you might say. And I noticed that finally, after this whole year of it, a couple news places had started to mention it this past week. Chris Hayes had something on his show. Huffington Post had something on their show, or on their website. But I've noticed the spin that's happened on on all these stories is that the spin is that, oh, well, we've got El Nino, and so, but we're going to have a La Nina, and that'll probably cool temperatures back down again.
Well, for a minute, maybe, if we're very lucky.
Right, and they've stopped interviewing actual atmospheric scientists. They're interviewing people who comment on atmospheric scientists, like Chris Hayes had a writer of opinion pieces of the New York Times. That was his guest, and not an actual scientist, because what the actual scientists are saying, many of them, is what we've been saying
You're gonna die, geniuses.
for many years.
Yeah.
And that is the reason these temperatures are leaping off the charts the way they are is because of
Positive feedback loop.
positive feedback loops, right? And some of the scientists have finally come around to this point of view based on these temperature leaps, and they do not want that said on mainstream media. Nobody on mainstream media wants to have any scientist maybe let slip that, oh, this might be a positive feedback loop, because that would mean we have to change our behaviors right now.
Right.
But of course, this does come on the heels of February being a record February, 1.5 degrees Fahrenheit above the historical average. That's according to the Copernicus satellite. And so the basic thing that ties all this together that I want to, that I'm going to try to tie this wolf killing in with the global warming. The basic idea is that a lot of people believe we should be able to do whatever we want, as much as we want. So like this guy, this hunter, believes he should be able to shoot as many wolves as he wants, and there should be as many, there should be wolves everywhere, even though he's
And yet,
shooting
when I
them.
do that, where is my money? And I need to get out of the bakery.
Yeah, exactly, right. I want to pay for one donut and have 12.
Yes.
You
I really do. I want this.
Yeah.
I'm not
And
joking.
a lot of people, a lot of businesses, they want to be able to burn as much fossil fuels as they want and not have global warming. But of course, in the real world, there are consequences. You do something, you shoot all the wolves in a state, then there's no more wolves in that state. You continue to burn fossil fuels, and you start a positive feedback loop. And but there's also positive feedback loops in terms of information. So the word is starting to get out, even though the mainstream media is not really covering the story. The mainstream media is trying to gloss it over, frankly. I'm reading these wishy-washy stories that are saying, oh, maybe this, maybe that, when, but we're still seeing on like social media, people are posting the actual graphs, and there's no arguing with these graphs. They are just off the charts. Literally, they've had to increase the scale on many of these temperature charts because the most recent temperatures don't fit on the scales they've been using for the past 50
Right.
years. So, so don't shy away from the truth. That's the lesson here, that I want to tie all these things together, that our actions have consequences, and there's no getting away from that. There's no escaping it, even if some people tell you that you can. Even if some people say you can burn as much fossil fuel as you want. No, that's false. There are some truths in the world, and ecologists see them and recognize them. Okay, so another truth in the world is that we are not getting out of this by using nuclear power. And the reasons for that are many. Basically it's too dirty, too dangerous, and too slow. But that hasn't stopped a lot of politicians and a lot of corrupt business people from trying to force it on us anyway. Again, they're trying to force us down a solution which is not a solution, And, as if that doesn't have any consequences, but it does. And one of the people fighting the whole nuclear power can save us fallacy is our dear friend Jesse James Deardewater. Jesse, are you there?
Hello.
Yes, I'm here. Can you all hear me pretty good? Or, well?
Yeah.
I hear you.
We hear you greatly. No, we hear you well. Yeah. So, welcome to the show. Welcome to the show, Jesse.
Yeah, glad to be here. Happy to be able to come, share some, news and stories and perspective from, where we're at here in Michigan.
Yeah, great. Could you just remind us of your organization, your name and your organization?
Oh, yeah, yes. All right. So my name is Jesse Deardewater. Pronouns are he, him. Community organizer for Citizens Resistance at Fermi 2 Craft, located here in southeast Michigan, and we do work within the 50-mile radius of the Fermi 2 power plant, which that radius goes over west past Ann Arbor, north up towards Troy, east over past Windsor, and south down past Toledo. And so, we'd like to see the plant shut down, the energy produced by it be produced by renewable resources, preferably solar, with, a rooftop solar with like some sort of community ownership over the grid. We work in an indigenous-led organization, and so we're kind of guided by the principles and values that are, that are like indigenous principles and values that work inside of like place-based respect and earth-honoring traditions, I guess. That's all. Sorry.
Yeah.
To get all that out.
That's great. No, that's true. And yeah, I'm actually within that circle around the Furby too, because Bowling Green is in there, and I'm very interested in the fight that you guys have been having for many years. That you've kept up this resistance, but you had a kind of a cool event last week that I would like to talk to you about. Speaking of indigenous kind of strategies and indigenous things, you had a wild rice cook-off, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, tell us about that.
Oh, okay. So wild rice soup cook-off. Excuse me. Manuman is the Anishinaabe word for it, and the Anishinaabe folks are the original people of Michigan and the Great Lakes area. That goes way up into Canada and down into Ohio and Indiana, and so they were kind of like all over originally. And one of the main foods that they foraged and harvested, that it grows on the water here in the Great Lakes and the rivers and the lakes, and that's manuman, that's wild rice. And so it's also a deep part of the culture too. Like it has to do with like some prophecies, a migration story. So it's a really important food to the people. And just like the people, a lot of the foods of just like the people of the land, a lot of the foods of the land were destroyed and disappeared and erased. It's almost to the point to where now some of the only places that there are manuman or wild rice on the Great Lakes are the pockets to where the indigenous people were moved, and they were still able to kind of steward it and keep it going and keep it healthy in some places, not all over. And now there's a movement to restore it on the Great Lakes and bring it back in Michigan. Everything from like just being out there on the water, repopulating it, natives, finding a legal path to have it become the state grain and become acknowledged like that, so that it can maybe afford some more protections after that. And so that's just a little context on the wild rice end of it. And so we want to, there's a lot of things that, nuclear power harms, and there's a lot of issues with it. But like, we wanted to try to find a way to be able to, like, tie the things that we're working to protect together with the issues we're experiencing with some of the historical catastrophes, I guess you might say, that have to come along with nuclear. And so Fukushima, the meltdown, that happened, was that 13 years ago now. Mm-hmm. The commemoration was just here recently, right, in this last week.
March 11th.
Yeah, March 11th. And so we wanted to try to find a way to, acknowledge the damage to the earth that was done, and the dangers of nuclear power, and how it can impact the land and how it can impact us. And, our Fermi 2 reactor in down there in Monroe, Michigan, is the same model, the Mark I. It's the same model as the Fukushima reactor that melted down. And that's one of the things that we highlight is a lot of these safety and design flaws, like the backup generators that had to do with, not with the power not kicking, or backup power not kicking on to kind of like stabilize the plant when it melted down. And so it's kind of like a way to commemorate Fukushima, a way to, to highlight how our plant is the same model, is also to highlight the dangers of nuclear power, but also at the same time to really bring to life and to bring to light what it is that's important to us. What it is, why we want to prevent, having a meltdown here, why we don't want tritium in our water, why we don't want, any more small modular reactors, why we don't want waste on the Great Lakes, why we don't want other Indian folks in other parts of the country experiencing the dangers of uranium mining, so that we can have new fuel for more plants, and
right.
And then also, what are the values and principles and for living here on this land historically, and what are the solutions, what it's going to keep us safe, what are the things what's the future we want to build, we want to exist in.
Right.
And so
it was pretty.
Sorry, I know that was a long intro to it, but it was a really it's a really important event for a lot of those reasons.
Yeah, and you had a really good turnout too, right?
Yes, yeah. So it's just kind of like, I grew up in Oklahoma, where they have like, barbecue cook-offs, chili cook-offs, and stuff like that. And here in Detroit and here in Michigan, there's a lot of people reclaiming and strengthening, the indigenous lifeways and indigenous connections. And so I've been seeing a lot of these soups, in the past few years. And so I was like, you know what, let's, talking to a couple people, I was like, let's have a soup cook-off, you know what I mean? Uh-huh. And we can highlight, because different tribes in different areas of the state and in the Great Lakes, different people have like different recipes. Sometimes people even have like family recipes they've been passing down for like generations, or a certain way that they cook it, or a certain way people like their rice. And so, end up having 11 different folks enter soups from different tribes from across the Great Lakes, everything. I mean, most of the people were local here in Detroit, Indians, urban. Some people came from a little bit away, but, the tribal makeup is from all over the country and all over the Great Lakes. And so there was 9 different Anishinaabe Ojibwe, Potawatomi, or Odawa entries, and one person from the Delaware of Thames over in Ontario. Or it might have been 10 Anishinaabe entries. But anyway, so it was like 10 different recipes, 10 different soups, or 11 different soups. And we had like 200 people show up. And it was really good, too, because not only did, get to share a little bit about craft in Fukushima and the work that we have been doing in the last year, because we've been putting in some stuff, some work, but also we were able to bring in someone who does ricing on their res with their family, and they pretty much do a lot of living off the land, and doing these old lifeways, and he had him come down to share a bit about their work, why it's important to protect the wild rice, how the wild rice can be impacted by, pollution, climate, flooding, even nuclear, and tritium in the water, and all kinds of different stuff.
Yeah. Well, congratulations. That's great. I had hoped to get up there, but I'm afraid I just wasn't feeling up to it that day. But that's wonderful. So, yeah, we are already running short of time. I'm sorry, Jesse, but there was also another development before that. There was a big court case, right? A big pleading. And could you tell us a little bit about where that was and what happened there?
Well, there's been a lot going on. Is this about the National Pollution Discharge Elimination System public hearing thing we pushed for and got here?
No, it was the actual testimony in front of, I think it was the NRC. That was the week before the rice cook-off.
Are you talking about the the parking lot dump thing that they had?
Okay. Yeah. Oh, actually, I thought it had something to do with. I thought it had something to do with the Palisades reopening, but maybe I'm wrong on that.
Yeah. Yes. See, there was a couple different cases that were that have been happening. One was let's see here. You had Beyond Nuclear and Beyond Nuclear and Don't Waste Michigan, who have had a few different things going on. One was for Palisades, and then another one, well, actually, against Palisades. But and then another thing that they had was for the interim storage waste dump in New Mexico and Texas. So they're on both those fronts. They did have some things before the NRC, some like oral arguments,
right?
And as far as I know, that they haven't heard anything back from them. They did say that they had a couple of judges that might have been like Trumpers or something like that, and this was for the high-level radioactive waste dump in New Mexico, which is a whole big crazy thing, because the state of New Mexico itself rejected having waste being transported through the state, and then have taken a position against this waste dump, and the local communities down there have taken this position against this waste dump, and I believe so have some of the oil and gas companies who have mineral rights in the area, because they don't want their oil and gas to be subject to potential, catastrophe or whatever it is. And so this
right.
fight that's happening in New Mexico.
They don't want their fossil fuels contaminated with
Yeah,
radiation.
they want their fossil fuels to get even dirtier.
Yeah.
But this is the problem, or this is where one of the issues is that, you know, the United States of America and the Department of Energy and the NRC are. This is a fine example of top-down hierarchical power structures and how they, like, I want to say, like, oppress the people and silence the people, because here you have a state itself which is rejecting this high level of waste dump. You have communities themselves, you have entities within these communities in the state rejecting it, but yet it's just being kind of forced onto them, and then people are having to go to bat on high level cases to fight against it, and they may or may not win. This is just a perfect example of a serious systems change. I mean, or a need for serious systems change when you have whole states and communities and people rejecting something, but you have an international company. I mean, that trumps them. This is just kind of like state of Michigan and Line 5 and that tunnel. You know what I mean? You have like
right, but I do want to make the point, stick on that point of the company that Holtec International is behind a whole bunch of this stuff, like the Palisades restart, and you know they're the ones that want to transport waste everywhere. And what we've been covering is that over and over again, Holtec is being caught and fined for doing things like, you know, falsifying reports and you know, falsifying records. And in fact, the whole Palisades thing was kind of fraudulent in that they made the application to be the company to close it, and then as soon as they got ownership, they said, "Oh, we're not going to close it. We're going to reopen it."
We're going to be the company that opens it now.
Yeah, and so so it just, you know, since you're in Michigan, it just kind of amazes me that the governor of Michigan there is so, and President Biden are so eager to get into bed with Holtec, which, you know, over and over again, I mean, it's been convicted of bribery, you know, I mean, over and over again, it's showed itself to be a corrupt company, and yet for some reason, a lot of politicians are leaping to embrace them.
Yeah, it is a mess. I got a couple numbers right here in front of me that from our newsletter I had here. They were fined for corruption. They paid a $2 million fee to the TVA back in 2010. They paid $5 million to New Jersey for lying on their 2014 taxes. And they're still negotiating a fine for their 2018 tax scandal. And that's just, you know, just quick hits on some of the stuff.
Yeah. Okay, well, Jesse, I'm afraid we're actually just about out of time. But if people want to follow your organization and maybe get that newsletter you're reading from, how would they do that?
Yeah, so you can go to our website, shutdownfermi.org, and there's usually a little pop-up, you know, that says sign up for newsletter, but then, you know, you can also just scroll down to the bottom of any one of the pages on our website, and you can sign up for the newsletter there. We're also on Instagram, Craft Citizens Resistance, and on Facebook too. We have a page we're launching, and that's Craft Citizens Resistance at Fermi too. So you can just type us in at any one of those, and we'll pop up. So,
all right. Well, thanks a lot, Jesse. It was great talking with you.
All right. Thanks, Joe. I appreciate it.
All right. So long. Well, that was Jesse James, Deer the Water. All right. So now it's time to hear from our advertisers and patrons, those who make this show possible.
For a Green Future is also brought to you by the Wood County Park District. The Wood County Park District is a natural resources conservation agency. They protect natural spaces, maintain quality green spaces, provide engaging programming, and they teach people to love and respect nature. They also restore wildlife habitats and lead people on outdoor adventures. Wood County Parks protects natural spaces in Wood County for all to enjoy from 8 a.m. to 30 minutes past sunset every day of the year. There are several ways to get a hold of them and find out what's happening. One is to call them at 419-353-1897. Another is to visit their website, www.wcparks.org. The website again is www.wcparks.org. They are also available on all social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and many others. Just search for WC Parks. That's the Wood County Park District, and we're very grateful for their support.
And we are also very grateful to our patrons. And patrons are wonderful, wonderful people who've gone to patreon.com. That's Patreon. There they searched for a Green Future. Up popped our Patreon page, and they signed up for a monthly donation. You get to set the value of that donation, so whoever decides to donate to us, you don't have to suffer. You could just make it whatever could fit your budget, whether that's $1 or $5 or $50. It would be totally up to you. And so every month somebody comes out of their accounts, comes over to us, and that's how we can afford to continue to bring you For a Green Future. Okay, and one of the nice things about For a Green Future are every week Rebecca takes a little topic and runs with it. So what have we got this week, Rebecca?
Okay, well, we have St. Patty and the Snakes this week.
St. Patty and the Snakes.
Yes. For those of you who don't know the legend, St. Patrick is alleged to have driven all of the snakes out of Ireland in the 5th century, supposedly because they were attacking him during a fast on top of a hill. And so he threw them into the sea. Interestingly, Ireland is one of the very few places on Earth with no natural species, no native species of snakes. So you've got that plus New Zealand, Iceland, Greenland, and Antarctica that do not have any snakes. And according to the National Geographic article quoting Nigel Monaghan, keeper of natural history for the, I believe the Dublin Museum of Ireland, something like that. Yeah, this would be because there never were any in the fossil record. He's looked at the fossil record. He's looked at other sort of things that would leave evidence of snakes if there had been any, and there were not. The reason for this adds up to temperature and water. Okay, I'm going to try and explain this. I think I understand it probably. The most recent ice age kept Ireland too cold until 10,000 years ago. Then it started to warm up, and for a minute there was still a land bridge between Europe and Great Britain, but the one between Britain and Ireland, the channel had filled in with from rising sea levels a couple thousand years earlier, so they never quite made it. Also, apparently, according to Mr. Monaghan again, snake populations are slow to populate new areas, quote unquote. So yeah, Britain actually, there are three snakes that got as far as Britain from mainland Europe: the venomous adder, grass snake, and smooth snake. But they didn't quite make it over the Irish Channel, I guess. So yeah, it's cut off by rising seas 2,000 years before the snakes could get over.
Before it was warm enough.
Yeah,
for
before it was
snakes.
warm enough. Yeah, as far as I could tell. Also, this route, it was a serious possibility because some things that ended up in Ireland this way are brown bears, wild boars, and lynxes, who made it from the Europe to Britain to Ireland route, pipeline as it were. So, yeah, it's the National Museum of Ireland in Dublin. That's what it is. There is something that looks kind of like a snake in Ireland. It's called a viviparous lizard, which, aka the slow worm. It's legless, so it looks like a snake, but it isn't. People think it was purposely introduced in the 1960s, and they really only exist in County Clare, so.
Interesting.
So, why the story, one asks? Well, Almost certainly the snakes are symbolic of pagans. In paganism, a number of different cultures, the Middle East, ancient Greece, snakes are associated with the earth goddess. In fact, that's probably where the Eve legend comes from, because the snakes stay close to the earth. They're seen as a naturally terrestrial animal, so they're the sort of the ally, pet, mate, etc. of the goddess, and that's why monotheists don't like them.
I see.
Yeah, so
Interesting.
that's what they meant. They were driving out paganism from Ireland.
I do remember in some art history book seeing a statue of a pagan goddess holding snakes in either hand. So
Who's that? Cybele, probably? She has snakes.
could
Yeah.
be,
She has
I don't know.
snakes, and there's the oracle at Delphi. There's the
Oh,
great
that might
serpent
have
at
been
Delphi.
it. Yeah.
And of course, Eve was probably originally a goddess named Hava, and or Hawa, from what I've read. And then there's Tiamat, and the legend, Mesopotamian legend, where her dragon husband is killed by Marduk, who she made to avenge her other husband because they killed him for the ridiculous, trivial crime of just trying to wipe out all humans on Earth.
Oh man.
I know.
Oh
you
well.
know.
Well,
Which is the
okay.
equivalent of spitting on the sidewalk for a god, you know.
All right. Well, thanks, Rebecca. And
You're welcome.
so, if there were any snakes that Patty tossed in the sea, he would have had to have brought them himself, I guess.
I guess. Yeah.
All right. On to ecological news. Of course, don't let any of that affect your St. Patty's Day celebrations.
Right.
But have a good time anyway. Okay, ecological news. This one, March 11th on the Daily Beast. $500,000 sand dune designed to protect coastal homes washes away in just 3 days. So,
Holy guacamole.
yeah,
Wow.
basically there's a bunch of folks who live in Salisbury, Massachusetts, and in a December 2022 storm, all the sand dunes that have protected their houses historically washed away, and there was damage. So they decided to get together and pool their money, and they brought in 14,000 tons of sand.
Uh-oh.
And the project took about 2 years, and they literally had just finished it, and literally 72 hours after the ribbon cutting and the hooray, our dunes are done, a big storm came and washed them completely away. They are gone.
They could have bought like an entire neighborhood of Toledo for that, I'm sure.
Yeah, they might, yeah.
Yeah.
But this demonstrates the fundamental problem with this whole idea of climate resilience.
My aunt and Uncle Worcester say they're getting, for the first time, they've been living in the same place for, I don't know, since the 80s, and they're getting water in the basement for the first time in Worcester.
Yeah, I mean, this whole idea that you could somehow civil engineer your way out of the rising oceans and the increased flooding and all that stuff, this is as good an example of why this isn't going to work as any that I found. And the also a consideration is that this 2 years of building these dunes and mining and moving around these 14,000 tons of sand, that put megatons of CO2 in the air because you gotta have heavy machinery to move the stuff and mine it and pack it down and all that stuff. And so this is the definition of futility, folks. So really, as we ecologists have been saying for 40, 50 years now, first you stop making the problem worse, then you can start talking about dealing with it and maybe finding some ways to...
It's lovely to give someone anticoagulants while you're still stabbing them to death, but the problem's really not going to go away until you stop the stabbing.
Yeah, stop the stabbing. That's a good slogan. Okay, so next story. We'll go from the East Coast to the West Coast. And it turns out that U.S. hydropower was at a 20-year low for the 2023 water year. And in fact, in Washington, the amount of hydropower generated dropped to 23%. In Oregon, it dropped to 22%. This is a story from KWOW KUOW, that's the NPR station on the Puget Sound. It was on March 5th. And the basic reason is low snowpack. They had a much less snow than normal, and a drought in addition to that. And so they had global warming, of course, is the cause, but what they've discovered is that there's been a 5 to 10% drop in the snowpack each decade since the 1950s. So this is a long-term problem. This is not just a weather problem for 1 year. And what has the result of that was in Washington and Oregon, natural gas generation had to go up 20%, and coal generation went up 17%. They have added some wind and sun, but unfortunately that only increased by 3%, so it wasn't able to make up the deficit. That's why they had so much coal and gas. And interestingly, there's one nuclear power plant in the northwest part of the United States. And that during that year, that plant, the Columbia Generating Station, they're dropped 14%.
Oopsie.
So just when it was needed most, just kind of like France a couple of years ago, it wimped out basically. So this whole idea that nukes are reliable baseload power, over and over again, we see when it gets really critical, they can't handle it. And so, yeah, it was a very poor snow season up there in the Northwest. They canceled all kinds of things like the slalom races, the legendary slalom race that they usually have every year. In February, they did get hit by a big storm, late February, so their snowpack for this year has improved. In fact, Washington's back to 75% of average, and Oregon's actually a little over average right now, 105%. So this should be a better year for hydropower, but it's just a sign of things to come, folks, unfortunately. All right, next story. This is published on March 12th in the Utility Dive magazine, a story about Ethan Howland. Biden has released his $7.3 trillion budget, and there's some interesting things in there in terms of energy spending. One is the Department of Energy, DOE's ARPA-E program got cut from $470 million to $450 million. Now there are increases in a lot of good things. One, the EPA budget got increased by 20%, which brings it up to $12.1 billion. Still a drop in the bucket compared to a lot of other federal agencies, but EPA has been seriously underfunded for a long time, so it was nice to see them get a jolt there. Also, the DOE state and community energy programs got increased by 16%. The Grid Development Office had a 57% increase that brought it up to $102 million. The EIA, Energy Information Agency, had a slight increased 4.9% to $141.7 million. The Office of Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy, good friends of the show, they got increased 8% to $3.1 billion. And interestingly, the Nuclear Energy Research and Development Program was cut 10%. So this is not characteristic of Biden. Normally up till now, he's been just gung-ho on all things nuclear. So it's kind of interesting to see a 10% cut in any nuclear budget line. Other nuclear budget lines have increased, but the Research and Development Office actually got cut. And I think that could be a result of the NuScale collapse, because that was supposed to be the poster project for small modular reactors. And when it collapsed, because it turned out the electricity was going to be about 10 times more expensive than any other alternative. And so maybe, just maybe, Biden might be turning away from the most expensive form of energy ever developed by humankind. We'll have to see. Okay, we are not doing too poorly here. We're going right along.
It strikes me sometimes that one of the reasons of the persistence of nuclear is reliable in American culture, besides the blatant lies that we've been told, of course, is that in America we very much do. Maybe Western culture, and again, in general, we equate the ability to do harm with power.
Mm-hmm.
So if a thing can harm people, that must mean it's super powerful, and we need that, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, yes. I mean, look at Fukushima and Chernobyl. They wiped out whole regions in their country. So this really is a powerful thing.
And in fact, so we think they're so, we want to believe that they're powerful, so we can, in fact, they're sort of the McDonald's shake machines of energy.
Yeah, good point.
Look at them wrong and they die.
Yeah, they're very, very touchy machines. Okay, next story. This was in the website Live Science on March 13th. Written by a woman named Elise Poor. And unfortunately, over the course of 2012 to 2021, 7,000 humpback whales died in the North Pacific over 10 years. And the reason was that the hot water that pooled there in the Northern Pacific called the blob. And what they did was, there's a website, an interesting sounding website called Happy Whale. And basically it's just whenever anybody takes pictures of whales, they post their pictures on this website. And they've been doing it for decades, ever since there were websites. And so what these researchers did was they had AI, and they used AI to recognize individual whales. I don't think it named them. I don't think it said, "Oh, that's Sally over
Jimmy,
there."
Bob, and Gladys.
Right, but they gave them unique numbers, identifiers, and so by looking at all these thousands of pictures that whale watchers and just regular people had taken and posted on this website, the AI was able to recognize 30,484 individual whales, and the history of the humpback whales in the Pacific they were whaled right up to 1976, when the population was driven down all the way down to 1,200 animals. And so from 2002 to about 2012, which is the time they studied with the AI, the population grew about 6% per year, and it reached a peak of 33,500 roughly. But after that, the population started dropping again, and by 2021, which was the end of this study, it had dropped back down to 26,600. So unfortunately, the population lost 7,000 members because of this big blob of hot water that killed their food sources, and they literally starved. That was the main cause of death. So all these people talking about dead whales being caused by wind turbines that don't even exist yet,
It's because you're thinking about wind turbines. It makes whales die.
Yeah, no, there are no wind turbines, or there are not even any wind turbine studies being done in the Northern Pacific. So more likely it's global warming that's killing these whales. So unfortunate. Next story. This is a happy story. Got a couple happy stories we're going to try to get to here. One is that there's a climate scientist named Michael Mann, and he, for the past 10 years, has been filing this defamation suit against a couple conservative journalists, and he finally got awarded $1,001,000 in damages by the DC Superior Court. And basically, he was the scientist, Michael Mann, who discovered the hockey puck graph, which back at the beginning, like 10 years ago, this was one of the first graphs that really started alarming people. And it's just a historical graph of temperatures that goes along straight, and it actually goes down over the past 10,000 years or so, and then the current times it goes straight up, and it looks kind of like a hockey stick laying on its back there. And so he was attacked in the press by many conservatives, and he sued two of them, a fellow named Mark Stein and another fellow named Simbers. And one is it works for the Competitive Enterprise Institute and another for the National Review. Stein had called the research fraudulent in the press, and he got fined $1 million. And then Simbers called Michael Mann in writing. He called him the Sandusky of climate science, and Sandusky was a reference to a fellow who had was involved in a sexual molestation of minors scandal at Michael Mann's college, where he's a professor. And so he sued them both, and he finally won. So that's nice, as opposed to like Exxon is suing Greenpeace right now to try to shut him up. In this case, the good guys won. So congratulations to Michael Mann. And another piece of good news, offshorewind.biz website on March 15th, U.S. gets first commercial scale offshore wind farm. So finally, we are just beginning to start to finally kind of approach Europe, which has lots of offshore wind. This farm has 12 turbines. It generates 132 megawatts of power. That's enough for 70,000 homes. It's located 35 miles off the coast of Montauk, and it's going to supply power to Long Island and Rockaways. So the construction started on February of 22. Here we are just 2 years later, February of 24, and the wind farm is up and running. So there's Siemens Gamesa, 11 megawatt turbines, so a very nice model. Well, that's just about, except I have to counter that with NPR story on March 8th. Florida man bans offshore wind, and that Florida man is actually Ron DeSantis. HB 1645, Florida has made offshore wind farms illegal. So there we go, one extreme to the other. That's it for this show. I hear the music. This is Joe DeMare.
And Rebecca Wood.
And we are signing off.
I don't want no oil spoiling my shoreline. I like fish much better than crud. I like birds and things creeping and crawling. Won't trade no more oil for blood. The sun done give us all we need to make this country run. But that black demon oil's got us fussing and fighting, and I do believe it's time we was done. I don't want them nukes run by them kooks who think radioactivity is fun. No more three-headed frogs or kids with leukemia. Nuclear power ain't fit for a dog. The sun done give us all we need to make this country run. But that nuclear power's got us fussing and fighting, and I do believe it's time we was done. No nukes!